Adding £20,000 to your property's value could cost you less than a dinner out. No, I'm not exaggerating. These are the same low-cost strategies that I've used on flips and rentals to boost my valuations, often in just a weekend. And they work whether you're selling, renting, or refinancing. I've been investing in property for 6 years, and I flipped my first house 5 years ago and have worked on so many more since then. And the truth is, you don't need £10,000 to make a huge difference. What you need is strategic, visible changes that shift how a buyer, a tenant, or a valuer feels without breaking the budget. So in this video, I'll walk you through the 8 incredibly cost-effective upgrades that you can use to transform your property's perceived value, including what each property upgrade is, how much it's going to cost you, and how much value I think it could add to your property. Now, if you're watching this to increase not just the value of your property, but also your rent and the expected rent that you can achieve, then you may want to get a free rental valuation with us on your property using the link in the description. You'll be surprised what these small changes could do to your rental income. Now, the first one is all about giving that potential buyer, valuer, or tenant a really good first impression. I recently went to Tenby on holiday with my family, first time going there, and it was lovely. And we stayed in this house that was about a 5-minute walk from the beach, and we're at the beach every single day. And every single day, I'd walk down the hill, past all these houses to the beach, and I'd walk all the way back up the hill. I was speaking to my brother-in-law, who is a builder by trade, and we were walking past houses that were all identical to each other, except they did one thing different. And I literally stood there going, why does everybody not do this? Because one looks like a lovely home that I would love to live in, and others look like pretty grotty houses. They painted the front of the house. So what they did is they had these pebble dash front houses, which I don't know why anybody invented that, but some of them had just painted their houses completely fresh and had done a white or a grey. Some people have gone bold because it's, the seaside, they've gone yellow. But even those, they looked really nice compared to the really drab old grey ones that had just been left there. And the difference was genuinely drastic. Now, the cost to do this, if you went out, bought the paint yourself, bought the rollers, you did the paint yourself, it's probably going to cost you about £100 to actually get that done. And the value that you're going to add is astronomical, because like I said, it's the difference between looking at two of the same houses and wanting to move into one and not wanting to go near the other. And so what that value is, it's up to you to decide. For me personally, I think you're comfortably adding about £5,000 of value to your property just by painting the front of it. Now, the next one, if you've been into many houses, and especially if you go and do viewings for properties that maybe need a bit of TLC, you'll know the huge difference that this makes. And it's just cleaning the house. I know that sounds silly, but there's houses that I go into. In fact, I had it the other week. I was looking for a property. There was one that looked gorgeous on Rightmove, and I went in, and as I stepped into it, it looked the same, but it stank. And that's just the truth. And as soon as you step in and you smell that, you immediately go, what's wrong? There's something, like, we're going to have to repaint. We're going to have to, the carpets are going to have to come up because it smells like, animals have lived there for 20 years, and it makes a big impact. So if you can clean up your house, if you can clean the carpets professionally, or if you can just make the place smell better, you're going to increase the perceived value of the property. Now, the cost of this, if you do it yourself, is about £50 to just get all the materials and then just spend a weekend doing a deep clean of the house. Or you could get a professional to do it and spend £250, £300 and get that done, completely deep clean the whole house. And for me, the impact, genuinely, using the example that I gave earlier, when I stepped into the house and smelt it, the price on Rightmove was £180,000. I quite liked that price. As soon as I stepped in, I thought, I'm probably going to offer about 170 just because of the smell. And so you're talking about a £10,000 uplift just by making the house smell fresh and new, or more than that, avoiding it smelling awful. Now, the next one is tidying up the front and back garden. Now, you can look at a garden and you can either see, welcome to my lovely home, or you can see, enter at your own peril. The difference between having a good quality, well looked after front garden and a overgrown jungle genuinely has a massive impact on your property price. Now, if all you're going to do is nick your neighbour's trimmer and just hack the whole thing down, it's really not going to cost you anything. It's going to cost you in time. If you have to go and buy the trimmer yourself, then it's going to cost you a little bit. But it can be anything from zero to maybe, 200 quid to actually get that work done. But it has a massive impact again on what the perceived value is of your property. In my opinion, a well-kept garden, or at least not an overgrown garden, can add about £5,000 worth of perceived value. Now, this next one is a kitchen and bathroom trick that I think can make a big impact, a big difference on how people perceive your kitchen or your bathroom. And I bet it's not something that you did when you went to sell your house. And that is installing splashback tiles. So if you've got tiles in your kitchen, what that is on your countertop, behind it, the little tiles that maybe come up this high. If you've got some old grotty tiles with dirty grout, maybe a bit of mold in the corner, and everyone knows a kitchen sells a house, it puts people off your kitchen entirely. So one of the ways that you can fix that is go and just buy some really simple, cheap tiles that are fresh and new and get them added. Or if you need to save on costs again, use like a cladded paneling, because then you can just stick it on and it will completely transform the look of your kitchen or your bathroom. The cost of this can be anything from 50, 100 to £300 to do this. And for me, as I say, kitchens sell your house. And so having that means that you're probably going to add about £2,000 or £3,000 worth of perceived value to your property. The next one is a little bit like the one that I mentioned earlier, but it's just a really simple, straightforward thing. I'm not going to go into too much detail about it, but I think having really nice, fresh looking windows has a big impact on people's impression of the quality of the house. So if you've got white UPVC windows and maybe they've been there for a while or they're a little bit old, rather than getting them completely replaced, just pay to have someone clean the windows inside and out, and you can just do a deep clean and scrub the PVC, the UPVC around the edges to make it as white as possible again. You don't have to replace the windows, but just giving them a deep clean genuinely makes the house look really nice. You can see straight through the windows. It's glistening, it's lovely, it's not all fogged up or dirty. And honestly, when you start cleaning a PVC window, the actual PVC part of it, you'd be surprised how dirty they actually are. So if you just give them a deep scrub, you'd be surprised at how much better they actually look. It's going to cost you about 50 quid for the window cleaner and then just the materials for you to do that. And for me, it might add £1,000, £3,000 of perceived value to the property. Now, the next one is more for those people who maybe live quite extravagant interior designing lives. I've been to houses where, and it's lovely, maybe you've got a child who's lived there for years and you painted their room bright pink when they were younger, and there's ponies on the wall, and it's lovely, it's nice. The problem is it doesn't look nice to a buyer, it doesn't look that nice to a valuer. I always think giving your house as much as possible a fresh coat of paint and painting it as neutral colours, I just think makes a huge difference. My personal preference at the moment, and what seems to be quite trendy, is it's called greige. It's like beige, but not beige, because beige looks a bit like what's the yellow paint that landlords have always used? Magnolia. Beige looks a little bit magnolia, and grey is a bit too dark. But if you kind of blend the two, it turns into this greigey, off-white thing that actually looks really quite nice. If you just cover your whole house in that, will lift up the brightness of the property and also just make it feel like it's fresh. And if people can smell fresh paint, actually, I think that makes it look a bit nicer, because it feels like someone's just freshly finished a project or a refurb and you're coming to have a look at it and it's brand new and there's no scuffs on the walls. It just makes it look really nice. So I think a fresh coat of paint is always my number one go-to thing to add value. It's going to cost you, if you do it yourself, about 250 quid to do with all the materials and the paint. But honestly, this is the thing. This is one of those things where you're probably adding about £10,000 worth of perceived value on this. Scuffed walls, old peeling paint versus nice, scrubbed back, freshly painted, bright colours. It transforms a house. Now, this next one is one that a friend introduced to me because he lived in a rented property. It was a lovely property, but the kitchen was a bit dated. Now, in a rental, you don't want to be going and spending a huge amount of money renovating or putting in a brand new kitchen in something that you're not going to own. And so what he did, he introduced this thing to me, and when I saw it, I was like, how are people not doing this more? It completely changed the whole look of the entire kitchen. And it was this: he just wrapped the worktops, he painted the cupboards, and he put new handles on the doors. Now you do this to a kitchen combined with the splashback thing I mentioned earlier, you have a new kitchen. It looks like a brand new kitchen. I cannot believe how good it actually looks. So I would highly recommend doing that if you want to transform your kitchen, make it look brand new, make it look fresh. Even if you're not looking to sell and you just want a nicer kitchen but you don't have the money, paint the cupboards, change the handles, and wrap the worktops. It'll completely transform it. The total cost to do all of this for the materials is probably going to be about £300. But if you want to get someone in to do it professionally, I'd recommend getting someone in to do the wrapping of the worktops, just so that you make sure it's done to a good quality. So this is probably more expensive. It's about £400 or £500 in total to get all of that done. But this is one of those things that will probably add £10,000 worth of value to your property. And this last one is, again, one of my absolute favorites. Really simple to do. It can make your house go from looking a bit old to looking like a brand new modern property, and that is replacing the taps. If you don't know what you want to go for, personally, what's very in at the minute is just black taps, like a matte black tap. If you do your kitchen sink, your shower, your bathroom sink taps, you know, if you just change all of these to just a matte black that you can pick up from B&Q for 40 quid for each tap, again, it transforms the look of your whole property and takes it from maybe a bit of a tired, dated property to a modern, refurbished property. Again, depending on the amount of taps and bits that you want to actually replace, it's going to cost you about £30 to £50 per tap, but this can add a significant amount of value. This can add probably about £5,000 worth of perceived value. Now, individually, these things can definitely add value, but by combining 2 or 3 of them, even if you went with the cheapest options and you did all the work yourself, all you did was buy the materials, you can genuinely add £20,000 worth of value. If you combined all of them together, you're talking about tens of thousands of pounds of added value by just doing these simple things. So I hope you found that helpful. If you implement any of those, drop them in the comments. I'd love to hear how it's gone for you. And if you're interested in investing in property, then we've got a free property investment playbook that you can get access to with a bunch of free tools, resources, calculators, checklists, templates, everything that you might need to get started in property. So click the link in the description to access all of that. And if you've got £50,000 and you're thinking about investing in property and making money from property in a bit more of a professional way than maybe this has been talking about, I've created a video to go through exactly how I would invest £50,000. So if you want to watch that, check it out, click the link, and I'll see you there.